Have you been gazumped this year? Did you get gazumped last year? Do you know what gazumping is, why it happens and what you can do about it? Well, that's what we're going to talk about this week. So really, if you don't know what gazumping is, that's a really good thing because that means it hasn't happened to you, which means one of two things. You've done things correctly the whole way along, or you've never actually bought a house. So let's get into it. Now, if you have been gazumped, I suppose the question is, whose fault is it? Is it your fault? Was it the real estate agent's fault? Was it another buyer's fault? Well, I'll kind of cut to the chase. It's your fault. You as a buyer, you are 100% responsible for the gazumping that took place. I'm going to explain that as much as it may hurt. Here comes the truth. So gazumping is basically when you're buying a house, you think you have a legitimate legal contract to purchase that house, and then you get a phone call either that night or the next day saying, gee, I'm awful sorry, but the seller's decided to accept another offer on the property, and you are completely deflated and angry and mad and confused and trying to find out why this happened. And not unusually, the offer that gets accepted, which causes the gazumping, is typically at a better price and or better terms and conditions than your offer was. And just to add to that, it typically happens in really good frenetic real estate markets. It rarely happens in normal or slow markets. So as a buyer, I made it clear it's your fault because you should know what legal acceptance looks like on a contract. You should know the exact details so you know when that agent says you've got it, you know that's not just them saying it, you know it's a legal binding document that you now have signed, sealed and delivered. And in fact, to be precise, a legal document is something that's signed by all parties, it's dated, so in Queensland there's one date at the start of the contract, that's the date of contract, that's done by the agent or the seller once both parties have signed and accepted everything and countersigned and initialed. And then when you as a buyer receive a copy and the seller receives a copy, that is deemed legal acceptance, and only at that point is that an executable contract. So what happens to cause all the frustration? Well, let's go through them one at a time. Number one, you delay getting the paperwork signed. So the agent sends you all the paperwork to be signed, you get it at 7 o'clock at night and you go, I'll get to that tomorrow. And then you get the phone call. So a delay in signing can cause gazumping. Number two, you say, great, I accept everything, the seller says fantastic, then you say, I just need my solicitor to have a look at it tomorrow. Well, again, that's opened everything up now to not having a signed contract. And then your solicitor looks at it, they get back to you by 4 o'clock that next day. Too late, the agent legally can accept another offer while your solicitor is looking at it. Number three, the seller hasn't actually signed. Now, this is somewhat the fault of the agent because the agent says, yes, it's all accepted, but you haven't received back a copy showing the seller has signed it. If you don't have that copy back, you do not have a signed contract. Number four, you mistakenly believe, and we hear this a lot, a verbal contract is a contract. Well, that may be true, but go and try and prove that. Go and try and prove that the agent or the seller said, yes, I'll accept it, and you've got nothing in writing. Very hard to prove, very costly to prove, and if you're wrong and it takes you 3 or 4 months to get to that point where you find out you're wrong, you may have missed that market. And I'll just kind of add to that, I'm not saying the agents are not at fault in this because I suppose an agent should alert you as to if you do have legal acceptance or just a verbal, hey, it looks good. But a lot of agents don't. So that's why I'm putting the responsibility back to you as a buyer, because at the end of the day, as agents, we work for the seller, not the buyer. So as much as all of this may seem unfair if the agent alludes to the fact you've got it and you haven't, at the end of the day, it's all done in a legal fashion. It's same as people that can avoid taxes. They don't avoid taxes. They use the tax law to minimize their taxes. That's okay. An agent and a seller can use the laws to hedge their bets on any offers. That's okay. It may seem wrong, but move yourself into the seller's shoes. In 5 years' time, you're selling, you verbally accept this offer, then the seller or the agent says, hey, I've got someone else right here willing to pay $50,000 more. These people haven't signed. What would you do? Would you say, no, we said we were going to sign and turn away $50K more? Most people would not do that. So that's it for this week. That's the end of gazumping. So if you're a buyer, give me a call. Happy to help. If you're a seller, call and we'll talk about our pre-marketing 11-phase system, which can generate what we call an off-the-market offer, which saves you a lot of time and money. And if you're a landlord and you want to manage your property, call us and we'll tell you about our rental guarantees, which no other company in this area offers. In fact, I wouldn't be hesitant to say no other company in the state or the country offers. So that's it. Next week, we're doing the market update.